The Rams are 3-6, but you're telling me there's still a chance. This is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Hold on,
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the November 15th, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help, got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues, get yourselves some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. All right, so we're here. It is a stormy Wednesday, but we're happy to be here talking some Rams football. Hey, if I get a little cloudy on you, if I get a little bounce, it's because it seems like outside my house, somebody stole the Ark of the Covenant, and it is wrath of God, thunder, and everything happening around here. So getting ready for the Rams to engage the Seahawks here on Sunday. Looking at the back half of the Rams schedule, I've shared how this team, I shared on Monday how this team can still have a successful second half. But at the time, I'm just wasn't buying or believing there was a path to the playoffs. It was a long shot because, like I said, Josh Dobbs comes in and wins 2 games for the Vikings that they shouldn't have won, right? And so in the Rams, of course, giving away games that they should not have been giving away. But loyal RamView follower, I hope I pronounced this right, Berensden, loyal RamView follower who's always encouraged me, Berensden, pointed out the Seahawks schedule going forward. And I thought, that bears something to look at. So I give full credit to him. And so the Seahawks are currently 6-3. They've lost to the Rams and the Bengals, and were absolutely blown out by the Ravens 37-3, as were the Lions, right? Their wins have come against Detroit, Carolina, Giants, Cardinals, Browns, and the Texans. Now, the Cards, the Giants, and the Panthers, they're bad teams. Those are bad teams. The Texans are modestly okay, but to beat them at home with a last-minute field goal, that doesn't really – those aren't 4 credible wins. Those aren't wins that would get you even in the college football playoff. The Browns, they beat the Browns, but they beat the Browns when they were running P.J. Walker and DTR. I think DTR started the previous game. That was a P.J. Walker game. Geno Smith threw 2 picks in that one, and they still pulled it off. So the only real impressive win the Seahawks have this year is when they went into the Motor City, when they went into Detroit, and they won there in week 2. And who's ahead of the Seahawks right now? They're 6-3, but they get the Rams on Sunday, which no matter what condition you think the Rams are in, it's a division opponent and it's on the road. That's a tough game. Then they got the 49ers, the Cowboys, the 49ers again, and the Eagles. There is a potential here, given who they've racked up their 6 wins against, right? There's a potential here. The Seahawks could start the second half here 0-5. And then after they face the 49ers twice, the Eagles, Cowboys, and, of course, the Rams this week, they finish the year against the Titans, the Steelers, and the Cardinals. I think they could beat the Titans and the Cardinals, but then you have the Steelers, and I don't think they would beat them. So that would be somewhere in the realm of they're 6-3 now. If they only pick off one more win, they're not going to the playoffs. Even if they picked off 2 wins, they're not going to the playoffs. But what's imperative here is that the Rams beat them. And that makes the Rams still alive in the inside track here for the playoffs. Now, I thought 9 wins would guarantee you probably a spot in the NFC playoffs. But again, some teams are playing over their head right now, and they've racked up wins, and the Rams have really hurt themselves by giving games away. But the Rams could have the inside track if if these events play out, and they'd have a 2-0 tiebreaker over the Seattle Seahawks because we beat them in week 1. And of course, if we could beat them here in week 11. The Rams schedule to start the second half, which we've gone over before, but they open against the Seahawks. They open up against them. They play the Cardinals in Arizona. Then the Browns come to town with PJ Walker or DTR. Now, that's not denying the Browns defense might be pretty good, which it is, but you're not going to win right now with PJ Walker and DTR. That makes that a very winnable game. Then the Rams go to Baltimore, and I don't think there's any, even with Ronnie Stanley banged up at left tackle for the Ravens, I don't know if that's even a good call right now. So we're definitely going to give the Rams a loss in Baltimore. But then they get the Texans, the Saints, and the Giants on New Year's Eve. All winnable games. Washington and New Orleans are at home. And then, of course, there's the final game against Frisco. The Rams have an opportunity here. They really do. They can win their first 3 games in the start of the second half. Lose in Baltimore, be 6-7. They can beat the Saints. They can beat the Redskins, the Taxskins, and they can beat the Giants, even on the road on New Year's Eve. And that would make the Rams 9-7 going into Levi Stadium in week 18 against the 49ers. And we could say, let's for right now project that at 9-8. There is a path. Now, it requires the offense doing their part because the offense has really hung this team out to dry, which I don't think any of us accounted for. I think a lot of us thought the real problems would be on defense. The analytics people, the pundits, and everyone were saying this was going to be historically bad defense. This is not a historically bad defense. The Rams have gotten great clicks out of Kobe Turner, Byron Young, and their secondary has been tolerable, if not great. And so, yeah, the Rams have played much better on defense than people thought. The disappointment, of course, has been this offense, even when Stafford was upright. And I think it really boils down to, the offensive line, which I think some of us had higher hopes. I know I was one of them. So something to think about. I want to thank Brensden for giving me that info and inspiring me to look that stuff up and keep them coming. It was fun. I enjoy having somebody that actually follows us caused me to do a little more work, and that was good. So around the NFL and other places, Deshaun Watson is shut down for the season. The Browns are turning to DTR against the Steelers, against that Steeler defense. Yeah, Steeler fan Rob in Missouri is doing cartwheels. Pat Freiermuth is designated to return. I think he's been designated to return. And, of course, they're getting Fitzpatrick back just in time to go against DTR, Dorian Thompson Robinson. And so Steeler fans are feeling really good today. Around the other places that we look at, word came out that Chip Kelly was on the chopping block. And I don't get it. I really don't. There's just nothing at UCLA that says it's a football school. Maybe in one day it was playing crosstown in Pasadena. No one cares. No one cares. My daughter was on that campus. My daughter went to UCLA. It's a basketball school, and she literally said, no one cares about the football. You see it. And yeah, so my thing is, if Chip Kelly is happy to keep making the bucks he's making and is happy to keep working there, then I think I'd stick with Chip Kelly, because who are you going to replace him with? They've already done the hot and young new coach thing, right? They did it with Carl Durrell. They did it with Rick Neuheisel. They did it with Jim Mora, right? And all these guys have been whiffs, right? Carl Durrell was the last head coach at Colorado last year, and he was fired when they were 0-5. Rick Neuheisel, who was always seemed like he was going to be the heir apparent, right? Went off to Colorado and then got that gig, had a nice season or two there, had a nice season or two in Washington, got fired in Washington, and came to UCLA, and we thought, that's it. The Golden Boy is home. I like Neuheisel. I loved his 83 season. I love the Rose Bowl win over Illinois back in the day. But I think people were really shocked that it didn't work out for Neuheisel. Jim Mora came in, NFL experience, NFL pedigree. He actually went 46-30, and they kicked him to the curb. Because I understand. I like Chip Kelly too. Chip Kelly's currently 27-9, but UCLA's kidding themselves. They are going to fall into the same pattern that they're going to be the Northwestern, the new Northwestern, or the counterpart to Northwestern in the new Big Ten, right? That's who they're going to be. They're not going to compete with Penn State. They're not going to compete with Michigan. They're not going to compete in the long run with USC. They're not going to compete with Ohio State. That's a butt kicking on an annual basis they're going to get. And they're going to be the Purdues of the world. They're going to be the Illinois of the world. They're going to be the Indianas of the world. They'll have 1 or 2 years once in a while where they pop up, win a big game, but lose the really big one when it counts. And so the truth of the matter is why are you getting rid of Chip Kelly? And you really shouldn't. Hey, given that USC defense, they might have a shot. And it is craziness outside my office here right now. Real quick here, we'll run this through. Monster game Thursday night, Ravens, Bengals. That's a huge one. Bengals lose that one, they can almost kiss the baby, right? They're going to be in serious trouble. They'll be 5-5. And then you have Sunday night's game. You have the Broncos. I believe the Broncos are playing the Vikings. That's a huge one. If you're a Rams fan, you've got to become a Denver Bronco fan on Sunday night. And then, of course, Monday, you got the Chiefs and the Eagles. I like KC in that because I just like Patrick Mahomes. But one thing I'd be worried about in that game for either team is wanting so much to show that who's the alpha and who's the big dog. One of the things I would be worried about in that game would be my people getting hurt, because I think that game could get out of hand physical. Philly's a physical team. It'll be interesting to see. Before we get to the break here, let's knock a couple things out. Havenstein, Durant, Murchison, Nakua were all listed as limited in practice today, and all are expected to be available against Seattle on Sunday. That's all there is. The name that I thought was interesting that was missing off the injured report, and I really haven't seen it. I'll take correction. So please, somebody out there correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't seen his name on an injury report this year, at least the ones I see, is Tyler Higbee. I keep hearing how Tyler Higbee's all banged up, how he's got this and he's got that. And he's a brave soul for going out there. I have no doubt he's a brave soul. You play in the NFL, you're a brave soul. But if he can't make a block, right, he doesn't catch the ball like George Kittle or Travis Kelce, so he needs to block. And if he can't make a block on some of these plays where he's basically setting up these Ram running backs for disaster, then he needs to be out of the lineup. And they never seem to mention how banged up he is. We just hear he's banged up and he's a warrior. I have no doubt he's a warrior. I have no disrespect for Higbee, but really, if he can't play, he can't play. All right. I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView. I'm happy to do this. I was a sports writer for 21 years. I'm reading one of my comments there. I've been a sports writer for 21 years, and I was one of the founding members at Mid-Valley Sports. Those guys are still in the room, and they cover the Chargers. I cover the Rams, and I write books. So you can find my books on Amazon. Just type in Joe Terosian, TOROSIAN .com, not .com, but there you go. That's my book, Tangent Dreams. It's one of my novels. I've written 2 high school football novels that have been well received, and I encourage you to check them out. I do RamView thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law and writing books because it sustains me in my day job. I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Nazarene, and you can find us right here on YouTube at Burbank Faith Virtual, as well as our website, burbankfaithvirtual.com, and of course, all other spots all across the social media platforms. There we go. We got that one in. Outstanding. Okay, let's get out of here. Let's get this to the second half real quick before the rain starts up again. Rams update. Hunter Long has been activated, and as it stands now, Davis Allen, Bryson Hopkins, and of course Tyler Higbee are all on the roster. Rams put a few people out in the street last week, Brett Rippon, all these other guys, Myles Gaskin, Corey Durden. They brought Corey Durden back. He's a DT. They signed him to the practice squad. They put Zach Van Valkenburg on waivers. Valkenburg had a sack this year, and he was kind of the energy guy during the preseason. And, he never looked bad, but he never looked great either. But he's an energy guy, and they waived him. My guess is if he's not signed, he ends up back on the Rams practice squad. And the Rams have signed Kier Thomas off the practice squad. I think they want to see what they got in him and if he could provide anything. So that's pretty interesting. Looking at the Rams roster right now and positions to kind of focus on. And I kind of came up with secondary, wide receiver, and offensive line, and we'll let one segue into the other. When we look at the Rams secondary, and this one's critical, especially if you're going against Seattle. You got Geno Smith throwing the ball, which is okay, but you're running against what? Tyler Lockett. You're running up against DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Noah Fant. You got guys out there that can catch the ball, let alone all the damage that Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet cause. So Kobe Durant, really, I think, I'm not going to say, I don't want to use the word whiff because I don't think he's a whiff of a draft pick, but he's a whiff if you want him in that star position, that slot corner position. I think if you're going to get the best out of Kobe Durant, he needs to be on the boundary. I think it was a nice experiment in the first half, but I really like to see him on the boundary opposite Ahkello Witherspoon on the other side. I think Quentin Lake has demonstrated that he can play that slot, that star position. And I like that much better. Right now you're looking at a team that is in transition here because I would keep an eye on Darian Kendrick right now because of his snaps. He didn't play against Green Bay, played 3 snaps. If Durant is going to the boundary and Lake is taking the slot, Witherspoon's not going to be benched. And so Kendrick's snaps are going to decrease. But you also have to wonder, how are they going to compare in relation to Duke Shelley's snaps or even the forgotten 6th round Thorpe Award winner, THT, Travius Hodges Tomlinson? It's going to be really interesting to see, are the Rams completely done with Darian Kendrick? I am more optimistic on Darian Kendrick than most. So I'm curious to see how that will play out. And of course, Kobe Durant, it all comes down to his shoulder as well, right? If Kobe Durant's shoulder doesn't hold up, who comes into that other boundary? Is it Kendrick? Is it Shelley? I don't think against the Seahawks it's going to be Tomlinson. So we'll see how that goes. Ernest Jones wasn't even mentioned. So that's really good news. Ernest Jones is back. And more Ernest Jones means less Christian Roseboom, less Troy Reeder. And that's always a good thing. A lot of talk came up again about how just looking on different message boards and hearing things that Atwell is, a big bust again. Early everyone loved him, and now he's turned into a bust because he's disappeared. And so I went back and I just looked in the game since Cooper Kupp has been back. Cooper Kupp in the last 5 games, it began with Philly. Cooper Kupp has 43 targets, 23 catches, and 2 drops. In the last 5 games, Puka Nacua has 41 targets, 25 catches, and 3 drops. Atwell's targets have dropped to 19, and he has 10 catches. 1 drop all season. He had a drop in the Philly game, and that's the only drop he's had all year. And everyone's saying, well, Atwell's kind of disappearing. Really? Does Atwell look like he's Van Jefferson to you? It doesn't look like he's Van Jefferson to me. It looks like no one's getting him the ball. And, again, he's not the primary guy. Atwell is the 3rd receiver. So they're going to look at Kupp. They're going to look at Nacua. And before they even can figure out where Atwell's at, sometimes our quarterback is getting clobbered. Personally, I don't think Kupp looks 100%. Do you think Kupp looks 100%? And we know the offensive line has been terrible. So let's take a look at that offensive line. Oh, it reminds me, I didn't look at the questions here. Steeler fan Rob, Browns are going with DTR. We aren't afraid of Watson. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Okay, just win the game, Chief. Just win the game, and then all the plaudits and roses and bouquets will be yours. So I don't think the Rams' offensive line has been very good, and I think it's affected the passing game. So they're looking at Kupp, Nacua, and then they're kind of overlooking Atwell. If you look at the Rams' situation here, let's look at their guards. Steve Avila is doing okay for a rookie drafted in the 2nd round, but obviously he's still learning. Right now, there are 32 teams in the NFL, right? Each team starts 2 guards. So you got to be in the top 64, right? And Avila, according to PFF, is number 42. I think it's a fair assessment. We're seeing him. There are moments where he looks good and moments where he gets beat. And it's not that I'm saying get rid of him. I'm not saying anything at all. But I do like him, but he has not played great. He's been okay, right? And the interesting thing about him, when you heard the talk during the offseason, is that center could be in his future. Avila goes 6'3", 332. That's more than size for a quality center. Jason Kelsey, considered the best center in the NFL right now, goes 6'3", 295. So Avila has the size to move to center. He's got the experience to move to center. Just something to think about going forward when you look at the rest of this Rams starting offensive line. Kevin Dotson. Everyone's been in love with Kevin Dotson, and I get it. He's probably been the Rams' best offensive lineman the last month and a half. He's actually rated by PFF the best right guard or the best guard in football right now. And he hasn't been great, though. I don't think he's been great. I saw the game in Green Bay. They couldn't move anybody in Green Bay. So I'll say he's good. And if he finishes well and people actually buy what the PFF gradings are, and I think gradings on PFF are great for a starting point, but you can't let it dictate what your eyes are seeing. I've shared that before. So if Kevin Dotson finishes well, you realize he's a free agent next year. He's a double-digit rock hit for whoever wants to sign him. That's going to cost him some rocks, at least 10 rocks. Right now, I think one of the guys in Miami, Connor Williams, I think it is, ex-Cowboy, I think he's projected to make 13 on the market next year. So it'll be curious what the Rams want to do, because Austin Corbett, the Rams didn't re-sign Austin Corbett, and I thought that was a good non-re-sign. I think Corbett had limitations. Corbett got 3 years, $26 million from the Panthers when he hit the market in 2022. So, I would expect it to be double digits for Dotson, and it's going to be curious to see if the Rams want to spend that coin on him. Right tackle Rob Havenstein is actually graded 18 out of 80, even though he's missed the last 2 games. Through the Pittsburgh game, he has been very good this year. I'm not going to say he was excellent. He's had a few occasions where he's been very, very good, but, excellent Andrew Whitworth type, we know he's not that. Or Jackie Slater, better match because he was a right tackle. My only issue with Havenstein is that he's 31 now. He's in his 9th year, and he got hurt with his calf, right? He's owed 26 rocks for the next 2 years, and I don't think that's outrageous for the way he performs. But with his age, it makes you wonder what the Rams could draft or what they need to develop out of Warren McClendon, Logan Bruss, or A.J. Curry. Yeah, it doesn't sound too promising. So when you look at the top 3 here, definitely you can see Avila being back. Dotson's kind of a hit and miss. Havenstein's getting older. Alaric Jackson at left tackle is graded 68 out of 80 by PFF, and he's performed well for an undrafted free agent, but that's it. His situation is he's a restricted free agent next year, so the Rams have a little more potential to control him. And I think Alaric Jackson has shown he's good in spots, but maybe it's a learning curve, but he's not good right now as a starter. He's just not really good. And Alaric Jackson's a starter because he beat out Joe Noteboom for left tackle. Joe Noteboom's grade is 78 out of 80. And Joe Noteboom, who I was a fan of before because I had seen him play, I actually think he's worse this year than in the few games he played last year. And, maybe he's not fully recovered from his Achilles injury. Maybe it's robbed him of some stuff, but he's been horrid. He's actually been horrid. Again, the NFL has 32 teams. They start 2 tackles. That's 64 starting tackles in the NFL. Joe Noteboom is grading at 78, right? That's how bad he is. He's worse than other people's backups too. But the problem is he's making big money, and he's going to be a 20 rock cap hit next year for the Rams. 20 rocks. So unless the Rams can find a creative trade partner, Noteboom is back. And so do you really see Noteboom? Do you want Noteboom starting right now? I don't know if we do. Coleman Shelton is graded 22 out of 37 centers that have been graded by the NFL. That puts him in line with the starters. He's serviceable. He doesn't make any money. And he's perhaps better as a depth piece. You wonder, you could move him back to guard, move Avila to center, and there you have your center position taken care of. But if Dotson walks, because maybe the Rams don't want to pay him, if Dotson walks, you got an aging Havenstein, and then you got uncertainty about Jackson, Noteboom, and then maybe Shelton going to the bench. I just wanted to point that out as we think about why are the Rams getting the ball downfield. They're struggling now, and what's it going to look like in the future, and what the draft might look like going forward in 2024. College football schedule this week, USC, UCLA. They're playing for Chip Kelly's future, and that one's this week. Came quick, huh? The exciting game, there's a couple of exciting games in the Pac-12 this week. Arizona, Utah. Arizona has been on a heater, man. They have been on a roll. Utah has done the best they can without Cam Rising, and it's starting to catch up to them. But we're going to find out how good Arizona is this week. You got Washington going to Oregon State. Oregon State's been great. Jonathan Smith has done a fantastic job in Corvallis, and that could be a tough game for Washington because they've had a whole series of tough games. Them very big game that they pulled out over Utah last week. And so now they're going to Oregon State, which is no give me. Oregon gets Arizona State. There's no problem there. Michigan gets Maryland. I think the Wolverines are going to play tough. I don't know if there's going to be a let up. I think if there was worry about there being a let up with the Wolverines, I think the NCAA and the Big Ten and all of them took care of that. And so I think Michigan's motor is cranking, and I pity the fools that get in their way for the rest of the season. Georgia gets Tennessee. Every time you start to believe in Tennessee, they play like that field. They look like Purina. You got Florida State. Florida State currently in the rankings of the NCAA is in the playoff hunt. They're the number 3 team in the playoff picture. Yeah, they're taking the week off. They're playing Northern Alabama. 10-0 Florida State against 3-7 Northern Alabama. And Alabama itself is 9-1, and they're going to play Chattanooga 7-3. Yeah, they're real serious, right? Ohio State gets Minnesota. Texas with Iowa State, and I'd watch out for Iowa State if I was Texas. Louisville gets Miami. There's no problem there. You got the Cardinals. They're playing well. And then you got Mario Cristobal coaching Miami, so that's a good combination for the Cardinals. And Ole Miss is playing Louisiana Monroe. So there's another SEC team picking and choosing its poison on what it's going to do. All right, Rams Seahawks. Looking at this game, Bobby Wagner has been fantastic. The Seahawks secondary is much better than it was in week 1. Tariq Woolen, Devon Witherspoon has been outstanding, 5th overall out of Illinois. Trey Brown has risen, and they got Julian Love, Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs. Yeah, so they've done really well in the secondary, but their problem is right now is up the gut. Still, that's why they made the deal for Leonard Williams, and they're not getting any help on the edge. There's no help on the edge, so they're struggling. And so they run in Frank Clark, and Frank Clark hasn't done anything yet. And Frank Clark really hasn't been in double digits since 2018. Frank Clark's a good pass rusher, but you know what? If your left tackles and if your guys can't handle Frank Clark, then they're probably not really top flight tackles in the NFL. Derek Hall, 38th overall out of Auburn, has yet to record a sack. And man, Rams fans were talking about Derek Hall. Steeler fan Rob in Missouri was talking about Derek Hall. And, of course, Uchenna Nwosu, he's got a pectoral injury, so he's pretty much done for the year. The surprise for the Seahawks on the edge has been Boye Mafe. And, he's been pretty good. He's had a sack every game this year, it seems like. So he'd be someone to keep an eye on. And, of course, we're going to talk about the Seahawks offense on Friday. But I really think this is a game the Rams have a great chance at winning in SoFi. All right, let's look at the NFL this week. Let me see. I got a question here from Tim Burns, Rams 34. You know, Tim Burns, when I looked at that, the funny thing was before I came on the air, if I was going to pick a score, I was going to say the Rams by 10 points or 2 touchdowns. So, Tim Burns, you're reading my mind. Dan O, what happened to Logan Brust? Logan Brust is spending a very fruitful year learning the game of football on the Rams practice squad, Dano. I think they're giving him this year to find his way, be around the team, practice, and then we're going to find out all about Logan Brust next camp, next summer. And if not, he's easily going to be on the chopping block. I don't think he's going to get the Bobby Evans treatment. I think he's just going to go. So we're going to find out if he can play or not play real quick. Okay, tomorrow, Bengals, Ravens. Ronnie Stanley's been ruled out. It says Trey Hendrickson is still playing. Trey Hendrickson thrives against backup left tackles. And so the Bengals are playing with urgency. If they fall to 5-5, that's their season, man. So I'm going to go with Cincy in Baltimore. Ooh, I don't know. I'm not predicting the score, but I'm going to go with Cincy in Baltimore. I'm going to take Joe Burrow this week. Cowboys, Panthers, Cowboys, Steelers, Browns. I'm going Pittsburgh. Bears, Lions. I'm going Detroit. Chargers, Packers in Lambeau. Boy, to me, it seems like every week Brandon Staley's job is on the line, right? You got to beat the Packers. If they lose to the Packers, the Chargers could kiss the playoffs pretty much goodbye in a very difficult AFC. Cardinals, Texans. I'm going Texans, man. I'm going CJ Stroud. Titans, Jaguars, Jacksonville on the rebound. Raiders, Dolphins. Now, this is going to be the interesting one. The Dolphins should beat the Raiders. If the Raiders beat the Dolphins in Miami, that is going to be the shocker of shockers, and things are going to go for the roof. And Mark Davis might give Antonio Pierce a lifetime contract before the fourth quarter is over or before he gets on the team playing. But I got to believe it's the Dolphins. And then so the flip side is, how do the Raiders react after they come down off the emotional high of a couple of wins? The Dolphins are for real, at least offensively. Giants, Texans. Yeah, we're going to go Texans. Buccaneers, Niners. We're going to go Frisco. Jets, Bills. Buffalo has to win. They have to win. They canned their offensive coordinator. We didn't even talk about that. They canned him so quick on Monday night that we weren't on the air on Tuesday. They canned him so quick. That's unbelievable. And they went with Joe Brady. He was the guy that was at LSU when Joe Burrow went nutso with all those touchdown passes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Rams, Seahawks. Right now, I am leaning Rams. Vikings, Broncos. It doesn't make any difference who I like or don't like. I want Denver to win this game. Denver needs to win this game so the Vikings don't get that seventh win. The Rams have to play some catch up here, some of those wild card spots. Eagles, Chiefs. That's Monday night. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out, since those teams, they shouldn't kill themselves to win this game. But I have a feeling they're going to kill themselves to try and win this game to show who's the alpha. And so someone's going to get banged up. So we'll watch that. I went 11-3 this week. I'm 97-53 on the season. I've had a good year. On this date, November 15th, on this date in 1979, former Ram defensive tackle Jimmy Kennedy was born. Jimmy Kennedy is now 44 years old today. All right. I just wanted to share that with you. Jimmy Kennedy. Do you remember who Jimmy Kennedy was? Jimmy Kennedy was, let's put it this way. Kobe Turner, being drafted number 91 this last draft, was the highest an offensive or defensive lineman, an interior defensive lineman, has been drafted by the Rams since Aaron Donald in 2014, right? That's how long ago it was the Rams drafted a defensive tackle that high. They drafted Michael Brockers, who was a good Mike Fanning type of guy, in 2012. He had a nice career. Chris Long had a nice career for the Rams. You know, everyone was looking for the next Jack Youngblood, and he wasn't Jack Youngblood, right? He wasn't even Fred Dreyer, but yeah, Chris Long had a good career. He was far from a bust. Before that, the year before they drafted Chris Long, the Rams drafted Adam Carricker, 13th overall. Aaron Donald was 13th overall. Adam Carricker, he was supposed to have Popeye arms and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, bust city. And the linemen they also drafted a few years before that were Ryan Pickett and Damian Lewis in the first round. Damian Lewis was being compared to Warren Sapp. And then in 2003, with the 12th overall pick, the Rams drafted Jimmy Kennedy out of Penn State. 6'4", 320. Everyone was kind of excited. Yeah, Jimmy Kennedy, right? He played in 53 games for the Rams. He had 4 sacks and 15 tackles for losses, and was sent to the Broncos in 2007 for a conditional 6th round choice. Yeah, and he's 44 today. I wanted to get that across, that you don't always find an Aaron Donald, and you don't always get a Michael Brockers, and you don't always get a Chris Long. There's a lot of Adam Carrickers, Damian Lewis's, Ryan Pickett's, and Jimmy Kennedy. Ryan Pickett, I'll give him credit. He was a bust up until his last year with the Rams, had a nice final year, and then went free agency because no one trusted him. And he was a pretty good journeyman guy with the Packers after that. But as far as being a number 1 pick for the Rams, he was a bust. And I bring this up again because celebrating a birthday today is Ethan Westbrooks. Does anyone remember Ethan Westbrooks? Ethan Westbrooks is turning 33 years old today. Wes Brooks was a down lineman, undrafted free agent out of West Texas A&M, I think it was. And he was in Rams camp in 2014. And if you remember Rams camp in 2014, that was the summer of Michael Sam, right? When Michael Sam was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. He biffed his pro day, looked horrible there, and he just dropped. Nobody wanted anything to do with him. And then of course, he had already announced he was gay, and all the pressure came on that someone's got to draft him. I had coaches texting me that it's time for the NFL to do this. Of course, no one talked about Jackson Jeffcoat, who I think was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, and he didn't get drafted, the son of Jim Jeffcoat, but that's okay. He was of a different orientation, so it didn't matter. But Wes Brooks was the undrafted free agent, and everyone was expecting Michael Sam to make the team. So much so that NFL Network would peel away from other preseason games to show Michael Sam getting a sack. He had 2 sacks that season, that preseason, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's got to be Michael Sam." Well, wisely, Les Snead and Jeff Fisher, they cut Michael Sam, who proved he was not an NFL player. He wasn't even a Canadian League player. And they kept Ethan Westbrooks, undrafted free agent, who appeared in 68 games for the Rams, including the Super Bowl. So in 5 years for the Rams, in 68 games, Ethan Westbrooks, an undrafted free agent, registered 9 sacks and 20 tackles for losses, which the only reason I mention that, because that's not stellar either, but Jimmy Kennedy was the 12th overall pick in 2003, and he only registered 4 sacks and 15 tackles for losses. You never know what you're going to get, right? And I just wanted to get that out there. Happy birthday to former Rams linebacker Kenny Young. Went to Denver the Super Bowl year. He turns 30 today. You know, the Rams got a 6th-round pick for him in 2021 when they traded him in 2021. But that 6th-round pick is finally coming due in this next year's draft in 2024.
Stone Groove, my man.
So if the Rams score somebody in the draft in the 6th round, you could thank Kenny Young from that trade that was 2 years ago. AMS, it never fails. The Seahawks pick up a former Ram player before we play them. Yeah, I think I mentioned that on Monday, right? Did we talk about that on Monday? That at the end of preseason, the Seahawks signed Robert Rochelle to the practice squad and then kicked him to the curb afterwards. And now they've signed Brett Rippon and kicked him. And, well, they'll probably kick him to the curb real soon. But they signed Brett Rippon to their practice squad to get an idea about the Rams. Those ones kind of crack me up because as long as I think this is going to be the 15th matchup between Pete Carroll and Sean McVay. I got it in my notes here. I was going to mention it on Friday. I think something like Sean McVay has 9 wins, something like that, because the Rams had that playoff win as well. So I think it's 9 regular season wins, 5 losses, and the playoff win. So it's 10-5, something like that, somewhere in there. And I'll check it out on Friday when I give my prediction for the score. But you got to figure Pete Carroll knows this Rams team. He knows it flat out. And so I don't know what Brett Rippon's going to give them other than, oh, they might try this or they might try that. Maybe, it'll be interesting as it plays out. All right. I think we're good. I think we went 38 minutes, guys. Hey, I apologize if the weather or anything else messed this up, but we're going to be working on it going forward. We're going to drop this on Spotify. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and be sure to hit share, and all that stuff that we need to spread ourselves around. You guys have been so gracious and so encouraging. Thank you so much. And we will see you on Friday. Oh, I know what I'd like. Actually, I know what I'd like. I'm flirting with an idea. I wrote a column. I wrote over 1,100 columns back in the day for our old website and everything called FanView. That's why I call this RamView. I was thinking about playing with the idea of doing a once-a-week sports show like this called FanView, and just of course we'll talk football. It's not going to be Rams centric, but just talking general sports, basketball, baseball, all that stuff. If you think you'd have any interest in that and you're a regular follower of us, drop me a line here just to let me know. And maybe you can say, no, Joe, don't do it. It's stupid. Don't do it. Right. I'd like to investigate that. Maybe just do it on Spotify or something, but let me know. All right. God bless. Take care. And we will talk to you soon. And hey, it's always good to be a Ram fan. Could be worse. You could be the Steelers fan.